Irina, I'm happy to see you. Can you hear me? Yeah, hear you very well, and we see you very well. You look so much up to the topic. Yes, I decided to have a Russian style uh, attire today. I'll start your presentation, and when you need the video, please let me know. So, good morning, good afternoon, maybe. So, today I'm going to tell about the fairy tale as a magical tool for transformation. Also, we're talking about the working with culture, with business, training. It can be used both for the training for students, for leadership. So we have a very beginning. In this treasure trove of a storyteller instruments, there's a one particular magic instrument that is called the fairy tale. And together with my colleagues, I'm going to present. So those are people I've been working with for more than, for almost a year. We are working with fairy tales, not um, as a folklore structure, but we use it as a kind of a tool for training. We are sure that techniques that are related with fairy tales can be very efficient, especially in some very difficult situations when nothing else actually is working. We need to use these deep line parts of our psyche. And this is something that can be touched by the fairy tales. Here is our team, Laysan, Vladimir, and me. We studied this methodology. Um, I believe Vladimir, Mr. Duncan, will present to you tomorrow, but I will also tell you where you can meet us. For example, during the week of facilitation. Um, We work extensively on the use of the fairy tales in business train, and I also believe that the fairy tales can have a psychological approach. I'm a drama therapist, so for me that's very close. So for me, it's a very topic that's very close. So we work differently with fairy tales. We use it for problem solutions, for the trainings for leadership and for the students. Um, some of my colleagues, we work on the different spheres, but those are main directions that I'm working with. And today I'll be sharing our experience of using the fairy tales in business trainings and in leadership trainings. So how we can use fairy tales in problem solution in organizations. We worked with the leadership of several organizations, this fairy tale approach. How we were using, how we were using fairy tales? We were composing fairy tales and also playing fairy tales. And those unsolvable problems we try to actually solve. We were starting with a very fair and just diagnosis of a problem to the creative solution of the particular problem that we diagnosed. One of the strategic session was carried out for the um, top leadership of two main Ross border canal. You see that the majority of top managers men. Both are mainly engineers. And actually, it's quite an easy task to involve people in the fairy tale. I already see the question, how you persuade the top management to be engaged in the fairy tale. Well, this is a good question. A strategic session was a part of a big corporate event, and this is why I show this particular case, because actually a fairy tale can really help us to overcome those barriers when people are actually not ready to speak about a problem, to be fair with the, the diagnosis of the particular problem in the company. We also had the preliminary work. We worked with the top management during the design. When we design the sessions, we always allocate special time to work with the sales and so on, so to persuade them first. Just give me a second. Oh, well, we worked with several departments. We work with debt management, who is responsible for the construction works. One of the tasks for the team is to analyze the problem using the fairy tale plots. Then they needed to compose the fairy tale and show the main value, the moral part of the fairy tale. In the beginning, we had a warm-up part. We were discussing, um, for example, what fairy tales remind of several of the real life situation and so on. We were looking for the metaphors. We were working with the metaphorological cards. And when we worked in teams where the teams needed to compose the fairy tale. As for the main character could be the newcomer in the company, a particular document, maybe a manager, some information, a project, a problem, or a particular task. And through this character, we needed to show, for example, the communication problem that exists in the particular company. Well, and then everything was a very in a traditional way. We were playing really the fairy tale, having all the settings done, the narrator, and so on. The team was going to present, to play the fairy tale. Others were to be the audience, and then we were to analyze the outcomes. We had very different fairy tales. Where were the fairy tales about the magic pipe, about the um, fairy tale about how the construction site was reconstructed, and so on. So here you see um, how they play the fairy tale that is what was composed about the magic pipe. Mainly, people were choosing very Russian characters like Baba Yaga, like the forest spirit, like Father Frost, and so on. You see, how his brutal engineers are actually very engaged in playing. We wanted to show the fairy tales, to show what they composed. Everybody was having fun actually, and also thinking about virtue. Here you can see another um, fairy tale based on the fairy tale that can be translated as "Go where no one knows where." Uh, See, here the main character was a newcomer, and it all ended up as a newcomer after many, many troubles had to actually go to the bus, and the actual boss was playing the boss. So it's actually interesting. This was a very spontaneous uh, living process that we've been witnessing. A bit more about the fairy tale. Here you see the dragon, the tsar, and actually here we see that there was this seat over trouble, over root, over evil, that was related to the construction of the pipes. The whole idea of the fairy tale was the following. We cannot really decide everything on our own. We need to be connected with other companies, with subcontractors that help and not just be an obstacle. Another story. This is the story of pump station, actually the beautiful and amazing pump station. Truly, we also have that very traditional fairy tale about the gigantic turnip, and this turnip was one particular object that was used during in this organization, but actually was causing lots of trouble, but was very needed. And after those fairy tales being played, when they analyzed uh, the communication between the departments, for example. So we do the real facilitation after we show particular problems through the fairy tales. So we were searching for solutions, we were creating the database or the bank of different possible solutions. So actually, fairy tales help in this playful way to show the problem. The through the fairy tale, we formulate something that is difficult for us to formulate, to speak of. We create something magical through the metaphor, and when we go back to reality, we already actually have spoken what was difficult for us, but through these tools of the fairy tale. People were actually very happy with the outcome because uh, through the fairy tales, they managed to speak about things that are difficult to speak of and to understand even and to express. Through these sessions, actually, sometimes we discuss more than people can discuss throughout the year on those business meetings because we are engaged together in something that is that is abstract. Fairy tale gives energy, um, right? Also, in the fairy tale, we try to see the connections, the correlations. We see we are more open to discuss the risks, to see them. And then when we already discuss it through the fairy tale, people are actually ready to facilitate. This is one particular case that I wanted to share with you. If Please ask questions in case you have some. And now I want to talk a bit about the training. I I'm work at the university. I do the business training. So for me, the educational use of fairy tale is also very important. Um, we use the fairy tale in the training that is called the personal efficiency of a leader. Here, we ask the participants to associate themselves with particular characters of the fairy tales. We use the card decks, the metaphorical card decks, and we compose fairy tales. Now, I will speak a bit more about the methodology because I believe everyone who participates in the conference is interested in the methodology. We help people to choose the card with a character they can associate themselves with. Sometimes we ask to draw a picture that they associate themselves with. When they discuss what kind of a fairy tale it is, in a fairy tale, it's very important not to be Russian. So the introduction, the warm-up is usually very, very slow. It shouldn't be very dynamic and steep. It goes deep, but it goes quite slow, not fast, but still. So we need to think about the character, about the current situation, ask the person to write about the character. So what is the character is about? What is his or her personality? And when I ask a person, so you see this particular character with this particular personality, what it has to do with you? And the person is usually quite amazed that everything is about um, everything can be related to them. We speak about how how they see their fairy tale as a character in a fairy tale, what ending they see. Sometimes we show a particular fairy tale to our partner, to the partners, or discuss the fairy tale. Um, here you see um, how our participants they were showing their fairy tales, they discussing it, or they discuss sometimes particular cases. Um, well, also fairy tales I'm using in for the students who study management consulting. So um, I was using it during the online education. The particular case I want to refer to, I worked with the students who had no experience of management. They were only studying the management, and they were very pressed in time, so they had not so many hours this particular subject. And it was really important to create the atmosphere. Actually, the group I've been working with, they said that was the most important subject, course that we studied throughout their studies, and those were the students on their last year. We discussed a lot and composed a lot. We discussed also the plot of the gigantic turnip, uh, where there was also a very interesting fairy tale composed about Dobrina, the hero, and his achievements, his endeavors. And now I want to tell you this fairy tale. Well, Dobrynya, the hero, became the boss of the security department of the state, but many problems were on his staff, and the people were against the solutions proposed by the knyaz of this particular state. And so people were starting to hide. Somebody, probably the army should be addressed in order to make all people drink this special potion that could help against the disease that was spread by the evil spirits in this state. So and one of the elderly decided to create the World Cafe. So everybody was gathered and in order to discuss how the state can be saved. So people were sitting, discussing, eating. Dobrynya rang the bell, and everybody changed the places so that the discussion could continue. The second elderly decided to use the technique of dynamic facilitation, so they did it, and the people were voting for for three different conditions. We wanted to see that the potion that they were supposed to drink was actually safe. Uh, Dobrynya adopted all the conditions that people composed. Dobrynya drank the potion. People were uh, looking at him. He became green, then blue, but when he became normal again. Everybody was applauding, and the knyaz of this particular state, he actually gave the order on the insurance of life for everyone who drink the potion. So everybody was queuing to drink the particular potion. Yeah, that's actually all very, very close to life. You know, this particular fairy tale was written by the students during the pandemic, during the online education. So there was also the virtue of the fairy tale. The trust should be earned. The orders can be only supported by the personal example. Always go to your people and know what what conditions that they have and so on. I believe now it's time for the Q&A, and I also want to ask Artem to show our small video that's also about the fairy tales. Artem, please put on the video.
Во времена коренных изменений в условиях тотальной неопределенности в городе фасилитаторов жил-был Иван-дурак. Ходил туда не знаю куда, искал то не знаю что. А у менеджера всех менеджеров князя Светлого княжна персонал закисла совсем, силы теряет, ни вовлеченности, ни целей ясных, ни образов будущего прекрасных. Разные способы перепробовал князь, киснет княжна, лежит, даже не улыбается. Вдруг выходит на князя из тумана неопределенности Иван. Тут князь ему и говорит:
«Подними-ка силы, княжне!
Пошел Иван искать силы, кого не спросят, говорят, иди к музыкантам бременским, заграничным.
Те стали Ивану песни предлагать. Design thinking, kanban, pinpoint. Классные песни на всех языках, кроме одного.
Который княжна понимает. Поучился Иван у бременских музыкантов, но в языках запутался. Вернулся с зарубежных просторов в лес российский, а там Баба-Яга.
Как княжне силушку поднять?
Проверенные заговоры курпатовские от всего и сразу. Вот зелье энергетическое, эзотерическое. Вот присказки сколковые, денег много то ли отдают, то ли отбирают.
Все попробовал Иван, все интересно и красиво. Но у княжны ни сил, ни улыбки.
А если что-то настоящее?
Но за настоящим тебе скомороху.
Нашел скомороха Иван и спрашивает.
Как я могу силы царевне вернуть?
Я говоришь, а кто ты сам-то будешь?
Поскреб Иван по сусекам и понял. Оказывается, в истории нашей культуре российской есть источники силы, чтобы быть крутыми во временами коренных изменений в условиях высокой неопределенности.
Что нашел?
Нашел я живую водицу под корнями культурными в колодцах, предками великими выкопанных. А когда смекалку подключил, сок необычный нашел. Не из фруктов ягод, а из дерева березы.
Хорошо. Только пусть княжна сама эликсир животворящий сделает.
Смешала князья снадобья России.
Well, this is what wanted to tell you today about the fairy tales. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Well, my colleagues will also be presenting tomorrow, my colleague. You can also find us on other platforms. So, yeah, now I believe it's the time for the Q&A. Thank you very much, Irina. It's very interesting approach, quite an alternative one. When I see some new techniques, they are so strange, but they're still very, very efficient. What literature sources can you recommend? Surely Vladimir Prop, his structure of the fairy tale. We're also going to publish our own article. Yeah, works of Vladimir Prop were actually he's also actually used a lot. Even Campbell used Vladimir Prop's works. There's a question by Alexandra. Can we also use fairy tales for children? Yeah, this is usually what we do. Yeah, this is the genre that can be used for children, and I believe it's the main application. I have one short question of my own. Sometimes from the there's a moment when we come from the fairy tale to the real discussion. Do sometimes leaders say, well, this is in the fairy tale, but in the real life it's different? No, usually they don't say something like this, because actually when we formulate the virtue, we are coming back from the fairy tale itself. So this is a very, very seamless transition from the world of fiction to the real life. So during this process of the composition of the fairy tale or the formulation of virtue, people actually analyze the problem already. They already start to feel that this is all about real life. Actually, fairy tales can also be used in some mini formats when we are talking with the clients, with customers. So, for example, we can use it as a kind of a warm-up. We can imagine if if I were a fairy tale character, and then think through this prism of the fairy tale. We can also think what kind of a fairy tale we can be now associating with, and why. Also, the metaphoric cards, uh, they also can be working very well. I have the deck with the fairy tales, and we discussed why this particular card is about just is about you, what you see in there. So it actually starts a process of analyzing where such decks can be bought. Well, they can be found in the internet. Yeah, they are available. Metaphoric cards with the fairy tales. We are also preparing our own deck. Well, I recommend the deck that is called the Russian Folk Tales. Yeah, please come to me. Yeah, I will be happy to share with you everything. Yeah, I do the online consultation as well. Also noted when you share a story, a real story, sometimes it's quite hard to get. I usually start the story, well, I tell you want to about the case that helped me to understand why this particular instrument doesn't work. So it helps a person who's listening to understand why I actually start talking. What do you do something like this? Yeah, sometimes we start with the traditional coach questions. So, what is important for you today? So we do the focus first, and then we try to think wider. And now, not about the head. Now, let's switch off the head and try to feel with something that is not your head. I believe that work with fairy tales is about spontaneity. It's about being not very rational. On our workshops, on facilitation, we even create the videos. There are different practical solutions. We'll have the conference on the 6th of June, from the 6th to the 8th of June, and we'll have the series of the series of a workshop. Please, Irina, can you can you share the links? So, uh, my colleague, Lisan, will be speaking on the Russian conference of the Russian facilitators from the 6th to the 8th of June, and we'll have the workshop that is called Fairy Tale as a Source for Magical Tools. And my colleague will also be taking part in the conference in Gimo, and she'll be also talking about fairy tale as a psychotechnology for the management and education. And now my traditional question I've been asking everyone. Culture forms the stories and the folk tales, fairy tales, what we are sharing, what we are living with. But at the same time, his stories, they influence the culture. Well, for me, culture is quite something quite distant from me. Corporate culture, psychological culture with something very important, with something very distant, with something constant, with something that stays when everything else is forgotten. So I believe culture is probably something that came first. Uh, this is the living water of our lives. This is something that actually creates the life. So this is the living environment we all live. I believe story is a part of the culture. So in this mix that is culture, there are lots of ingredients, and the story is one of the ingredients. The better is the ingredient, the better is the solution. But we can change the mixture. We can do it, make it sweeter, make it more acid. Actually, story changes so much. Like um, every cook use the ingredients differently. So here it's the same. And I believe the culture was first. Thank you very much, Irina, for joining us. I wish you further success in your work. Please press the fire buttons to celebrate Irina's presentation. Also, you can speak to Irina or write to Irina in the Telegram chat, and also Irina will share her links there.